What's a better buy, the new lifted package on the TRD Off-Road Tacoma or going all out and getting a Trailhunter? We'll find out in today's comparison. Both these trucks are being provided by Toyota of Orem. I'll include a link to their website, also include a link to my car buying guide. Let's get into it. The Trailhunter only has one powertrain option available. It's Toyota's hybrid turbo 4-cylinder. It puts out 324 horsepower because the rarest air intake, or it's 323 maybe. I can't remember. It's 2 or 3 horsepower less. Anyways, 465 pound-feet of torque. But yeah, you can only get the hybrid. Whereas the TRD Off-Road, you can get the standard engine, which this one has, or you can get the hybrid. The standard engine puts out 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. So you got options with the TRD Off-Road. I'm trying to hit 500,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I'd really appreciate it if you'd help out with that. Now, the Trailhunter is going to come with a lot more standard equipment compared to what you'll see with the TRD Off-Road. For example, the Heritage Toyota logo, the color-changing fog lights, the light bar up front, upgraded tires and wheels. You also have a bunch of underbody protection, tow hooks too. Rock rails from the factory. You've got the ARB rack in the back. There's even an air compressor in the bed. And then you get a fully loaded interior with heated and cooled seats. You get the bigger infotainment system. You get all the off-road tech with the rear diff lock, the stabilizer bar disconnect, multi-terrain set crawl control. This has everything standard pretty much. Whereas again, with the TRD Off-Road, you have options. And this one happens to have the upgraded fog lights and some underbody protection and the upgraded tow hooks. And like I said, this is lifted. This has a 2.5-inch suspension lift, still has Bilstein shocks. And for those of you wondering, the Trailhunter with the old man Emu setup and then the 2.5-inch suspension lift on the TRD Off-Road sit pretty similar in terms of overall height. No air compressor in the bed, and this one doesn't even have bed liner, just the composite setup. Now you can get a stabilizer bar disconnect, but this one doesn't have it, just the rear diff lock with the multi-terrain select crawl control, and then this one actually has the basic interior with the smaller screen, so it has a lot fewer features. But that doesn't mean the Trailhunter is going to be a lot more money. That Trailhunter is almost $66,000, whereas that Tacoma is just over $51,000. And they even have a more basic version of the lifted Tacoma that's sub $50,000 for the MSRP. So again, with the TRD Off-Road, you've got options. Let's take them out and see which one performs the best. Trailhunter. Let me see how hot it is outside, actually. Kind of curious. Well, usually they have the temperature here somewhere. The reason I'm wondering is my camera overheated very quickly. Usually doesn't happen that fast. So, like I said, they do have a few of these. This one I picked out because it's got the spray and bed liner. It's a nice option to have. But yeah, the Trailhunter out of the two top-line Tacomas has been the most popular because the TRD Pro has those isodynamic seats, and again, I don't know if they're going to make that an option for 26. I haven't seen anything on that. All that I see is that there's no major changes, and that's kind of it's not on every single Toyota, but that is kind of across the lineup for most Toyota product in 2026, is they're not really making a lot of major changes, which makes sense because they've made so many changes to their core lineup since 2022 with the release of the new Tundra. Now you do get the raised air intake sound, which again, inside's not bad. I mean, the windows are double paned, so they isolate pretty well, so you do get a little bit of the sound, but it's very minimal. Obviously, if you roll down the window, you get a ton. But yeah, if you have the window rolled up with the double pane window, it is not bad at all. Now the suspension on this isn't quite as Baja-like as the TRD Pro, right? The old man Emu is more about longevity, just yeah, overall durability in general, right? With Fox shocks, they're all about giving you performance then and there. You know, you go over a bump and the shocks are gonna be focused on soaking that bump up. These still soak things up, but their focus is being able to go over 1,000 bumps and still function properly. And it's not to say the Fox shocks aren't reliable, they just aren't built out with durability in mind as much. That's why they have to be rebuilt quite often, whereas you know, you get a good set of old man Emu or Bilstein shocks, and those things sometimes can last longer than the vehicle itself. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, this is not uncomfortable by any means, but it does have a little bit of a firmer feel over the bumps and everything. And it kind of has just more of a planted feel in general on the road. Not bad though. No complaints on that. No complaints whatsoever. I do love the torque on this thing. And can you feel the deficit of 3 horsepower? I don't think so. It's 2 or 3 horsepower. I can't remember the exact. I think it's 3 horsepower. Man, that has got good power. Again, on the bottom end. Once you get the top end, yeah, it's a 4-cylinder turbo, so it tapers off a bit, but it gets the job done overall. It really does. So, taking everything in, the Trailhunter package is really cool that Toyota did this, because prior to this newest generation of Toyota, if you were into overlanding, right, you're either going to pick a TRD Off-Road or you're going to pick a TRD Pro, and you're going to have to make some concessions. With the TRD Pro, right, that kind of has a shock system that's more about high-speed stuff rather than actual overlanding. Now the TRD Off-Road, you know, that's kind of more of an overlanding setup, but then you have to spend a crazy amount of money to pop on all the overlanding stuff that you might want. Whereas this from the factory has most of the stuff that people are going to want. And, you know, if you're not being a yuppie millennial, I'm going to say it, because yuppie millennials will do the same thing. If you're not going to be a yuppie millennial, you just throw a tent in the bed. You don't need to, and I'm not talking about a, you know, a rack with a tent on. I'm just saying literally, like, just throw the tent in the back. You put that sucker on the ground when you find your camping spot. Like, people make overlanding a lot more complex than it needs to be, and so you look at this truck from the factory, and it's honestly overkill. You could take a base model TRD Off-Road, and you could do overlanding with it. Again, just throw a tent in the bed. Got plenty of space back there for it. So, I think this is a really cool factory package. I think it gives people a nice option that Toyota didn't offer before, and I think it'll continue to be popular because of the, obviously the looks, for the people that just care about the looks, but, you know, the built-in practicality, where if you added a lot of stuff that this has yourself, you're going to be a lot more money. So it kind of, it's expensive, but it saves you money in that sense. Well, TRD Off-Road with the lift. I'm really interested to see the difference in the suspension comfort between the two. I'm wondering if this is going to be, man, that steering wheel is magma. Yeah, I'm wondering if this is going to be that much less comfortable, or it's going to be as comfortable. I will say the seats in this are actually not really less comfortable. The cloth, right, it's not going to be as easy to clean, but yeah, I mean, the cushioning and everything feels nice. Not a bad seat at all. Not a bad seat at all. Now, let's see how the torque feels on this thing. I mean, obviously this is more about the suspension than the powertrain comparison, but it's interesting to see how much less torquey. Sorry, let me lean this back more for you guys. How much less torquey the non-hybrid feels. And I will say, it did take me quite a bit of time with the Tundra to really feel the difference between the powertrain, you know, the hybrid versus the non-hybrid. With the Tacoma, it seems like it's more pronounced. And I'm thinking the reason being is just percentage, right? Because with this, you're going from 278 to 326. With the Tundra, you're going from 389 to 437. So, you know, percentage-wise, it's a little bit of a, I mean, if math serves me right. Sometimes I'm not good at doing math right on the spot. I think that's a bigger percent increase though in the power on this, especially the, I mean, you look at the torque difference. The Tundra goes from 479 to 583. This goes from 317 to 465. So like more torque in general, but definitely a bigger percentage increase. So the point that I'm trying to make is this the hybrid non-hybrid difference is more pronounced in this than it is in the big vehicles, which is interesting. Very interesting. In terms of the suspension, it doesn't really feel less comfortable. It doesn't feel quite as it doesn't feel like it has quite as much travel. And I kind of suspected that. I kind of suspected that, you know, Toyota's not cheaping out in the lift, but it's kind of just like what, you know, Ford did with the Bronco, what Chevy does with the Silverado Trail Boss. When they lift it, they just boom, throw on a lift. They're not really concerned about correction or anything like that. So basically just lengthen the springs and everything, and then you get less down travel, but then you have a taller vehicle. but you do feel it. You do feel it with the drive. It feels like I said, the Trailhunter feels like it has full travel. This doesn't feel like it has as much travel. It's not uncomfortable, but off-road, it would be a pretty pronounced difference. When you have less travel, that's less control and less comfort. I will say though, this drive's nice. It truly does. So, setting things up with this comparison, here's my thoughts. If you're looking at a fully loaded TRD Off-Road Tacoma, you know, iForce Max, premium interior, all that, you might as well get a Trailhunter or a TRD Pro, depending on what you're looking for in terms of off-road capability. But I mean, I think that the price is so close, and then the resale value on those is going to be better. You have to wait a little bit longer to get the truck typically, but I think it's worth the wait for the looks, the name, the resale, all that. But if you don't need all the bells and whistles, and you don't need the hybrid powertrain, and even if you had a hybrid to this with a base interior, it'd still be like $10,000 less than a Trailhunter and TRD Pro. So it's mostly like once you add everything in, that the TRD Off-Road stops making sense. But yeah, if you do this with a baseline, or you just add a few options, then I do think the TRD Off-Road is kind of a better value, especially if you're mall crawling. Yeah, that really showed there, like because I went side to side way more in this than in the Trailhunter. Shows you down travel. Anyways, I think that's kind of the way that I would cut it. Is if you're not going to add all the options, the TRD Off-Road, and especially if you're not going to take it off-road, then you can make this look fantastic for a lot less money. A lot less money. So let me know your thoughts on the Trailhunter versus the TRD off, you know, kind of like the regular off-road, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that the Trailhunter is a better value at the top end, and I think this is a better value at the bottom end.